to learn how to do terrorism and to learn justifications for terrorism and reasons for terrorism from terrorists? Or is it to actually learn something practical and develop practical, usable skills that are going to further not only the career of the student in question, but advance the interests and the capabilities and the innovation of the country that's...
Trump just cut DC crime in half, so why are the media shrieking? Douglas Murray rips the mask off the left's meltdown, Putin-esque games, and Harvard-esque terror chic guest list. Watch or stay blind.
But you go back to that root question you and I have talked about before, Rita, which is like, what do these institutions think they're for? Like, what does Harvard University actually think it's for? What do these universities think the purpose of a university education is? Is it that a student should get heavily into debt and have their studies subsidized by the American taxpayer to learn how to do terrorism and to learn justifications for terrorism and reasons for terrorism from terrorists? Or is it to actually learn something practical and develop practical, usable skills that are going to further not only the career of the student in question, but advance the interests and the capabilities and the innovation of the country that's educating them? Like, what is the point here? And it seems to me, as it has to a lot of Americans in recent years, that places like Harvard have just completely lost the plot of what they are actually there to do. And nothing can exemplify that more than something as preposterous as this. They will, of course, at Harvard cry free speech. But you just have to say, free speech is absolutely vital. I spent much of my life defending it. And it is a core bedrock principle. But even without there being any illegality, you have to say, what do you want to use the speech for? And you just can watch. It's not a criminal matter. It's not a civic matter. It's just a matter of watching. And if an institution says, we don't want you to crack down on our free speech, Mr. Trump, etc., you go, okay, and what are you using the speech for? Oh, you're using it to bring terrorists onto campus to educate the next generation. That is an odd thing to do with such a fundamental right, to put it at its lightest.
It is an odd thing to do, and if you're going to claim free speech, then you better be consistent about it, and Harvard and other universities have not been. You can't hardly get a mainstream conservative on campus without all sorts of uproar from the staff as well as the students. So, yeah, the free speech...
I watched that exchange and I found myself nodding, then stopping, then nodding again, because Murray is right about the raw numbers in Washington, yet he is only telling half the story. The left in America, and by extension their cousins in the UK, have spent years building a narrative that says any tough policing is authoritarian, any deportation is racist, any prison expansion is mass incarceration. When those slogans crash into reality, into mothers afraid to push prams after dark, into corner shop owners locking their doors at 6 p.m., the public mood flips. Trump simply rode that flip. He did not invent law and order, he harvested the votes the left forfeited when it decided that every criminal was a victim of society and every policeman a suspect. But here is what Murray did not say the very same week the DC stats were released. The Metropolitan Police in London quietly published their own year-on-year comparison. Knife crime in the capital is up 28%. Moped-enabled robberies are up 34%. The borough of Haringey, a Labour stronghold, recorded more muggings in January 2025 than the entire county of Kent. Yet Sadiq Khan's response is to rename community safety teams as community support ambassadors and to send them out with clipboards instead of cuffs. While Trump federalized the DC National Guard and surged 2,500 extra officers onto the streets, Khan is busy commissioning murals that read knives down, bikes up. One city's mayor sends in the cavalry, the other sends in the graffiti squad. The deeper pattern is unmistakable. Everywhere the modern left governs, the same ingredients appear: an obsession with the rights of offenders, a suspicion of the police, and a moral panic about root causes that never quite roots out anything. In San Francisco, District Attorney Chesa Boudin raised by whether underground terrorists spent 3 years declining to prosecute shoplifting under $900. The result: Walgreens closed 17 pharmacies, and the city lost 1.4 million shoplifting incidents worth of tax revenue. In Paris, the Seine-Saint-Denis prefecture admitted last month that 55% of all arrests involve foreign nationals, yet the Macron government still refuses to deport illegal migrants convicted of theft. The left's answer is always a jobs program, a counseling scheme, or a conference on social exclusion. The victims, many of them elderly pensioners or new immigrants themselves, are told to wait for the next utopian 5-year plan. Why does the left cling to this script? Because it has invested its entire moral prestige in the claim that crime is a capitalist byproduct. If crime drops after aggressive policing, the script collapses. That is why CNN and The Guardian rushed to find any criminologist willing to say the DC figures were too early to call or a statistical blip. They cannot allow the possibility that broken windows policing works, because if it works in Washington, it can work in Chicago, in London, in Stockholm. And then the electorate might ask why the left fought it so bitterly. Let us talk about Sweden, the poster child of progressive penology. In 2019, the Social Democrats abolished custodial sentences for drug offenses under 500 grams. Within 24 months, the number of gang shootings doubled. Last year, a rapper named Einar was gunned down in Stockholm in broad daylight. The killers were 2 boys aged 15 and 16, both already known to social services. The Swedish press called it a tragedy of lost youth. The victim's mother called it murder. When the moderate party proposed mandatory minimums for illegal firearm possession, the left coalition filibustered for 6 months, citing systemic racism. Meanwhile, grenade attacks, yes. Grenades rose from 3 in 2014 to 107 in 2023. Sweden went from Abba to Baghdad in one policy generation, all because the left insisted that punishment is barbaric and rehabilitation is always cheaper. The bill for that experiment is now being paid by Swedish taxpayers who have to armor their letterboxes. Back in Britain, the Conservative Party should be surfing this wave of public disgust. Yet Kemi Badenoch is on television reminiscing about playground tattling. I admire her backbone, but the story is tone-deaf. Millions of parents are terrified their children will be stabbed on the walk home from school, and the leader of the opposition wants to talk about Year 6 exams. The messaging vacuum is so glaring that Nigel Farage is filling it with Reform's simple slogan, lock 'em up, kick 'em out. The electorate does not want nuance on crime right now, it wants visible consequences. If the Tories cannot deliver that message in 5 seconds, they will lose another generation to populists who can. And while we are on the subject of consequences, let us discuss Harvard's invitation to Sami Al-Arian. The left's defense is always the same: sunlight is the best disinfectant. That line works when you invite Charles Murray or Jordan Peterson to campus. It collapses when you invite a man who pleaded guilty to aiding Palestinian Islamic Jihad. There is a categorical difference between unpopular speech and incitement to murder. Al-Arian's organization celebrated the 2001 Sbarro pizzeria bombing that killed 15 Israelis, including 7 children. His idea of academic discourse includes quoting the Hadith about killing Jews hiding behind trees. Yet Harvard's Middle Eastern Studies Center lists him as a visiting scholar. This is not free speech, it is institutional masochism. And it is funded, in part, by U.S. federal grants, your taxes and mine. Compare that to the treatment of Ayaan Hirsi Ali at Yale. When she was scheduled to speak on the dangers of political Islam, the Yale Muslim Students Association circulated a petition claiming her presence would cause trauma. The university capitulated and moved her event off campus. A woman who fled genital mutilation in Somalia is too traumatic for Ivy League students, but a convicted terror enabler gets a lecture hall. That moral inversion is the fruit of decades of post-colonial guilt and identity politics. The left has created a hierarchy of victimhood in which actual victims, Israeli teenagers, British shopkeepers, Swedish ambulance drivers, rank below the perpetrators who claim historical grievance. Here is the practical upshot: every time a progressive DA refuses to prosecute, every time a Labor council cuts police budgets to fund climate officers, Every time a European court blocks deportation of a foreign rapist, the public marks it down. Not in a spreadsheet, but in the gut. The same gut told Britons to vote for Brexit, told Americans to vote for Trump, told Swedes to hand the Sweden Democrats 20% of parliament. The left calls these voters far-right because it cannot face the mirror. Yet the mirror shows a movement that has forgotten the first duty of government to protect the innocent from the predatory. I will close with a prediction. Within 18 months, one major European capital, Berlin, Paris, or Amsterdam, will elect a mayor who campaigned on mandatory deportation for foreign criminals and a 10-year minimum for knife possession. The BBC will call it the rise of the European alt-right. The voters will call it Tuesday. And when that day comes, the left will have only itself to blame. It chose ideology over safety, sociology over common sense, and criminals over citizens. The reckoning is coming, and no amount of campus seminars on restorative justice will stop it.